Hi, my name is Emily Kruger. And what else did you have?
All right, Emily, today I'm just going to ask you a few questions about social media.
Okay.
My first question is, how do you think social media has affected society today?
I think it affects society just in the way that people really don't communicate with each other anymore. They're more so on their phones and on the internet more so than having a decent conversation face to face.
Do you think social media has benefited today's society or left more of a bad mark than benefited?
It's benefited in some ways, but I still think it has a bad remark. I guess the benefits would just be just our technology is growing. So.
Okay. How many times do you use social media a day?
Probably 10 times a day. I'm on Facebook very often.
10 times a day. Do you think using certain social media sites for educational purposes is a good thing or bad thing?
Good thing. You can learn a lot from the internet.
That's true. So, do you feel like most kids today feel like they need a following base in order to feel important?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So you could state your first name for me, please?
Sharon.
Sharon. All right, Sharon, my first question is, how do you think social media has affected society today?
To be perfectly honest, I think it's affected society in really the most negative way because people don't just do stuff on their own no more. They have to be behind the camera. And, you know what I'm saying? It takes away from the realness of life or whatever. It's like if you're not somebody, then you have to become somebody, you know what I'm saying, through social media. So.
My second question for you is, which you pretty much answered this too, but do you think social media has more benefited society today or left more of a bad mark?
It's kind of caught between the both, you know what I'm saying? Because you take a person that's, like I said, not really a nobody or whatever, they can do something real strange or stupid and become famous, you know what I'm saying? And then you get the people that, you know, really want to strive to be good and stuff like that, and it's like they don't get recognized as fast as the, you know what I'm saying, the people that wants to do dumb stuff.
That put in the hard work. How many times do you personally use social media a day?
I have to say between 15 to 20 times a day I use social media.
15, 20 times. Do you think using certain like websites, Facebook, Twitter, etc., for educational purposes is a good thing or a bad thing?
I have to say it's a cross between them both again.
Cross between them both
It's a good
again.
and bad thing.
Do you feel like most kids today feel like they need a following base in order to feel important?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
All right, no problem.
So I'm here with Brad Power, theater professor, and Brad, I just have a few questions for you. The first one would be, how much do you think social media has impacted today's generation?
I think it's impacting all generations pretty greatly at this point. I think there's that weird split that's going on in culture nowadays, where we, on the one hand, feel like we're much more connected and in the know as far as what's going on between our friends and loved ones, and in some cases people that we haven't physically been in the same place with for a really long time. But then there's also a huge disconnect because that communication back and forth happens online. I think people oftentimes feel safer saying things and wording things in a manner that they wouldn't if they were actually talking to people in real space in front of each other. So I think it's a double-edged sword. It brings people closer together and also allows us to be more at odds and with a greater divide between people at the same time.
Do you think social media has benefited today's society in a greater way or has left a bad mark on it?
Again, I think at this point it's kind of 50-50. It's really kind of hard to split. You can make equally powerful arguments both ways. You can say that it's led to more, especially within the American culture, it's led to more divisiveness within our culture. But then again, it's also given people voices who wouldn't normally have those voices as well, and given them kind of more power and more of an amplification of what they have to say and how they feel about things at the same time. The downside of that, of course, is that it also makes it easy for us to shut out those voices that disagree with us and to block those that don't think the same way that we do. So you can get your voice heard, but oftentimes the people that hear your voice are the ones who agree with you more anyway. So that's kind of, that's the tricky part. Not that it's necessarily all that different from real life, because we've always been able to isolate ourselves as people from the people that we don't agree with, whether it's within our neighborhood or within our circle of friends and churches or wherever.
How many times do you use social media in a day through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, etc.?
I would say I haven't ever done any kind of an app that runs, how many times I've physically opened the apps up or looked at them, but it's definitely a throughout the day kind of thing for me. I've experimented a couple different times with deleting like the Facebook app from my phone when I felt like I was looking at it a bit too much and it was distracting from things that are higher priority in my life, and just using it through more of work avenues, like on my laptop and desktop instead. But I would say, if I was to make a guess, I would say for somebody my age, I'm probably a little more than average, just because I have to stay connected with younger folks via my job in it. But overall, with kids that might be 10, 15 years younger than me, I'm probably nowhere near as much on it as they are. I tend to take in content via YouTube and places like that more than I am actually interacting on social media so much.
And then this kind of runs into what you just said, but the next question was, do you think using certain social media sites for educational purposes to like get kids to respond to class and different things would be a good thing for today's economy, or would it just make things worse?
Well, it depends on what you mean by social media. I think
like YouTube, like you said.
I teach from YouTube, but I do not teach from the YouTube comment section. I think the material and the creators, what they've created should speak for itself. And I allow everybody to have, of course, their own opinions on what they're seeing, but I don't take those opinions, especially troll-based stuff, into mine when I'm showing that stuff. I let the content speak for itself and let people make their own kind of judgments and opinions over it. I don't necessarily make a habit these days of showing any material that's passed back and forth through Facebook posts and things like that, because, again, even though I work in a very subjective art form, I try not to present too much of that material that's very personal and very subjective, so that you can keep things as neutral as possible and then let people make their own kind of perceptions of it based off of what their lives have fed into, what their philosophies are and how they view it.
Okay, and then my last question for you today would be, do you feel like most kids and students today feel like they need a following base in order to feel important?
I don't know. I think that's different for every kid. I think a lot of that kind of falls back on how they were raised and what kind of morality and important factors their parents and their teachers have instilled in them. I think getting into the math of how many people are liking or following or buying into what you're selling can be a really dangerous kind of slippery slope. I think the more important folks are the ones that are actually in your life, analog and not digital. It's the opinion of those people and what they think about you that should vastly outweigh sheer numbers of other people that aren't right in front of your face on a daily basis. Not that the people at a distance aren't important, but they definitely should not be viewed as being more important than the ones that are in your life and breathe the same air that you do on a daily basis.
Okay, well, that was all my questions for today. Thank you for your time, Brad. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, sir.
Hi, my name's Ryan Hammer. I guess I'm here to answer some questions.
All right, Ryan, my first question for you is, how do you think social media has affected society today?
Well, I think that it's actually brought a lot of people closer together. I do see that a lot of people are frequently on social media websites.
All right. Do you think social media has benefited today's society or left more of a bad mark?
I mean, there's two sides to every coin. With the goods of social media, like I said, it brings people together. And with the bads, a lot of people only use social media to talk to other people and to be social. So I feel like that could be one downside.
Right. How many times do you personally use social media a day?
Actually quite often. I've actually been trying to actually minimize that so that I can focus on things during the day.
Do you think using certain social media sites for educational purposes is a good thing or bad thing?
I would think it would be a good thing because you'd be able to, like, for instance, psychology would be a great thing to try to learn and understand people's lives and the way that they live.
All right, my last question for you is, do you feel like most kids today need a following base in order to feel important?
There's always a sense of belonging with every single individual. I would say that people who were to pursue something like that, I mean, like, there's some people that make money off of social media nowadays. I guess having a following, a lot of people do find it actually pretty important, I've noticed. I myself, personally, I do not, but I know of a lot of people who use social media very frequently that do.
All right, and that was it. Thanks for your time, Ryan. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks.
I'm here with Wanda Miller today, sociology professor. And Wanda, I just have a few questions for you. First question would be, how much do you think social media has impacted today's generation?
I think social media plays a huge part in today's generation. You have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and probably ones that I'm not even aware of, and so many kids are using it on a daily basis. I think it plays a huge part. I also, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to go this far into it. Well, I'll wait for the questions.
Okay.
I'll wait for the questions.
Next question is, do you think social media has benefited today's society or has left a bad mark?
I think there's a huge benefit because on a small scale, individuals are able to connect with other individuals. For instance, I know myself, I'm able to connect with family members that are in New York, that are in Florida, that are in St. Louis. So that's on a smaller scale. On a larger scale, we live in a global society. So we're able to connect across oceans. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think we have benefited hugely. Are there areas where it's being misused or overused? Most definitely. So,
Yeah, it's definitely a wide range of communication
Right.
now. How many times do you use social media in a day through Facebook or Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, etc.?
I use Facebook daily. I have 2 businesses, so I'm always posting on those sites. But also for my personal use, I use it daily as well. So, yeah.
All right. Do you think using certain social media sites for educational purposes is a good thing in our schools or a negative thing?
I think it's a good thing because, again, we're a global society. We're a global community. We're a global. You can get so much information. It's readily available through social media. So my 13-year-old who's doing a research project for school could get information from Tokyo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or about Tokyo. And that wouldn't be available without, the internet. And he very well may be able to speak with someone from Tokyo to get personal experience via Facebook or one of the other social medias.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely a good thing that they use it. Again, assuming that they're using it in the right way.
Definitely. Last question for you would be, do you feel like most kids today need a following base in order to feel important, like getting followers on Twitter, Instagram?
I think they think. Do you get what I'm saying? Like I think they believe that it is important. My son, who uses Twitter more so than Facebook, such and such is following me now, or I have, received so many likes on this picture. So they associate it with people liking them, with popularity, because they receive so many, likes. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. I think it plays a big part too. All right, well, thank you for your time today, Wanda. Appreciate it. All right, so this next guy I'm about to interview, his name is Brian from American Airbrush. I just want to stop the video and give him a shout out because he's a really cool guy. So, yep, hope you guys enjoy the last of the video.
Hey, I'm Brian from American Airbrush, and I'm here with
Mason?
Mason. He's doing a video for social media, so he's got a few questions he's going to ask me.
All right, Brian, my first question for you is how do you think social media has affected society today?
It's definitely affected society. I mean, as far as like the way that people communicate nowadays, people would rather speak on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter than come into their house to talk to them back and forth. So, I mean, the interaction has gone away as far as the physical part of it, and it's more online based now.
All right, a second question for you is, do you think social media has, like kind of already answered this, but do you think social media has benefited today's society or more left a bad mark?
It can go both ways. Like myself, I use it for business. I mean, I get a lot of new faces in here because of that. So, but at the same time, it kind of shelters other people that would normally need that interaction with other people face to face. So it's hard to say. I mean, there's good and bad that come with it.
All right, how many times do you think you use social media in a day?
Oh, on a given day, I randomly check it probably 40 to 50 times a day.
40, 50 times? Do you think using certain social media websites for educational purposes in school is a good thing or a bad thing?
I'm not sure how we could flip it to where it would be beneficial for the schools right now, because I mean it's more of a social interaction. I'm sure there's probably ways that we could figure out how to make it a positive for school, obviously.
Yeah. My last question for you is, do you feel like most kids today feel like they need a following base in order to feel important?
I would say yes. The more likes, the more people that they have on their Twitter account, or their Facebook or Instagram, they feel like they're more popular. But in real life, at the same time, they might only have 2 or 3 friends. So, yes, I would say it builds up their character by having a bigger following on Instagram or Facebook.
All right, well, thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
Not a problem, buddy.
All right, guys, well, that's it for the video today. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a comment down below in the comment section telling me what you think about social media and how it affects everybody in society today. So, yeah, leave a comment below, like and subscribe if you want more, and I'll see y'all later.